Darren Rovell here with Collect TV, along with Matt Liberman, who broke the EA story as to what schools are getting paid for the college football game. Matt, thanks for joining us. A lot of questions to get through. The most surprising thing about this for me was the standard by which schools get paid. It is not based on any sort of brand ranking. It's based on wins and then falls into four tiers. So I was looking at all the schools, and the most surprising thing, it's not that surprising if you decide it based on wins, but you have Purdue and Nebraska making less than $10,000. Again, these are Power Five schools in the Big Ten, and they're in the fourth tier with
Right.
everyone else along with the 134. You do have all the traditionals pretty much fit into that tier one, right? So, the Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, Oklahoma, Clemson, LSU, those guys are all in there. But then you have Washington in tier two. Then you have Texas, you have USC. Texas arguably is the number one brand in college. So were you surprised by the rubric that they set up? And do you think that's the right way it should have been set up?
What I was surprised by is not using the college football playoff, using the AP poll, because that to me doesn't make any sense. In my estimation, they're saying that bowl games matter, but if we're really looking at what is the importance of a season, it's the college football playoff. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, like the college football playoff has been around for the exact 10-year period that they took the AP poll
Right.
results from. So I really don't understand why they use I get that it was what they used to use, but to me it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, look, Washington is the one that stands out to me the most. Washington made two college football playoff appearances. There are other teams in tier 1 that made zero,
Zero.
and Washington is getting paid less. And look, I know if you're looking at the actual amount of the money compared to what they're bringing in revenue, it's not significant. Still, if you're looking at a fair system, I don't understand how Washington made two college football playoff appearances and went to the national championship game and is getting less money than Iowa when they're in the same conference and one
Right.
has been way more successful year in
Right.
and year out. I get that Iowa was in the top 25 more at the end of the year. Iowa never got to the playoff. They never got close. And Washington was there twice.
Right. You're messing me up a little bit with the whole Pac-12 now Big Ten in the
Yeah.
same conference and the whole thing. So that was interesting to me. Two, I didn't calculate all the aggregate guarantees together, right? But again, you just mentioned it. The numbers seemed light. Let's talk
Yeah.
about these tier one schools are generating $3 million at the gate for every game. And now they're getting less than 100,000. To me, and again, I have to do the work and see, well, they're getting, if you do 100,000 and you have 13, 14 schools and it's 1.4 million. I don't really get to the number I thought would be guaranteed royalties. Does the initial numbers, the 100 at the top, the 10,000 at the bottom, seem light to you?
It did initially, but then I thought about the fact too that if you're paying $600 to every player who's in the game, let's say you have 100 players on every team who are in the game. When you do all that math, it comes to about $8 million that you're paying the players. Then you have to pay every school. Obviously, EA wants to make money on the game, so they're not going to give a huge percentage of the money to the schools and to the players. So it sort of makes sense to me when you add it all up that
That's right.
okay,
And you know what I forgot? I forgot about the probable okay, so on the cover, right? You have
mhm,
Edwards and Ewers and back
Travis Hunter,
Hunter, right? So you have those guys based on NIL on the cover are making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
yeah,
And then you might have, and we still haven't figured this out, the wild cards. There might be a couple wild cards that
mhm.
EA wants to put in the games. So okay, that makes a little bit more sense to
It,
me.
and something to think about in the future. Coaches aren't in this game, I'm guessing they will be in future versions. And so that's something where maybe EA didn't want to extend too much money too early, and then all of a sudden you have to pay coaches for their name, image, and likeness in future games.
It's weird because I feel like the last time this game was out, 11 years ago, it might have been acceptable for coaches not to be in it. I don't think
Hmm.
it's acceptable now. You agree?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, so we have that. We think the game's going to do well. It is amazing just to look at the reaction of every little bit of this
Yeah.
story and how psyched people are. I mean, I will tell you, as someone who's reported uh, the entire the entire like growth of the college franchise throughout my career, it's been a run, and it's been very interesting that Ed O'Bannon thought that he was going to be the hero, and he's the zero. Like he's the guy in some way. He's the guy who obviously got this whole ball rolling. And we should not have, we didn't give up all our rights. We shouldn't have been when we signed our release. We shouldn't have given up all these rights. And now he's seen as the guy who ruined everything, which to me is wild over time
Yeah.
that's what became the discourse. But for you, um, you've essentially not had a college football video game or a college basketball video game for your almost your entire life. I mean, when you
Yeah.
were a kid, when you're a young kid, but like, so what is it for you? Obviously, I'm, 20 years older than you. What do you think this means to people your age?
I think it's huge. I think it's probably even bigger for people, let's say 5 years older than me. But there's no doubt that it's huge.
Because
I
because
was
they because they because they had a taste.
Yeah, so for example, like I was either a sophomore or junior in high school when the last game was made. And so at that point, it's obviously a game that I've played, but it's not one that, like, let's say I'm playing in my college dorm room.
Right.
I think people about 5, 6 years older would have even a greater taste for it. That said, I had the games, I loved the games. Something to keep in mind too is that the documents that we were able to obtain via open records requests did say they are looking at potential different metrics for how to calculate these tiers in the future. So for EA College Football 25, it is
Right.
the AP poll for the last 10 years. That may change moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think Oklahoma State and Iowa want that at the
No,
tier one,
no.
or Texas and USC, or Purdue and Nebraska, Virginia in tier four, Virginia and BC. Like it's hard for me to believe that any Power Five should be in the tier should be in the tier four.
Yeah,
Again, like Nebraska stinks, but like honestly, if you're gonna say like who's going to play with Nebraska, like that's
it's a
it's
lot.
probably still a top 20
Yeah,
school.
you're
Yeah.
going to have more people playing with Nebraska than Utah State, and like that's a
Right.
matter of fact. But the
And
interesting thing
Utah
that
State is a tier two, right?
right,
Yeah.
right. But the interesting thing that we saw in these documents is that they did say there's no historical way to tie the fan bases to sales. They said that
Hmm.
they are able to do that for other licensing, like jerseys, things like that. They are not able to do it for video game sales.
Yeah, because there's not when people buy it, they don't vote and say why they
Right.
bought the game. And I also think it's a collective thing. It's you're buying it for the
What
bunch. Jerseys or something else is a totally different story.
what what one athletic director told me, which was really interesting, was they were wondering if there's a way for EA to look and see how often teams are played.
That's a good
So
idea.
so can you look and find, okay, Nebraska was used in the game this many times. Utah State was used this many times. Vanderbilt was used this many times. Because I think that that would be really interesting.
So in 2013, you couldn't tell. Now, depending on what percentage of the game is online gameplay, now you could, right?
Right.
Like that's something that's interesting. Wow, I love that. That
That that
that actually makes sense.
that was a question that I had for EA. Again, they didn't get back to us for comment, but that was a big question that I had for them.
Matt Liberman, amazing reporting. Thank you so much. What a great story for us at Collect, and really appreciate your work. And so does the world. Let's keep crushing this thing.
Let's do it.